So, as most of you know, our political leaders trade hundreds of millions of dollars worth of stocks every single year, sometimes even in the billions collectively, which is kind of mind blowing that they have that much wealth. And by the way, that's not a partisan thing. Both, Democrats and Republicans who are directly in charge of our policies and our laws are both in turn trading gigantic amounts of money in the stock market. Well, one of the more famous cases of that is in California Representative Nancy Pelosi, who, in partnership mostly through her husband, was a net seller of stocks in 2024, but has now been almost exclusively a buyer here in 2025. So, in today's video, we're just going to quickly run through the only 6 stocks that she spent millions of dollars on throughout the first half of this year. And I'll give you my own opinion on each one of them. And I'll even rank them from best to worst too, based on that opinion, just to make it a little more interesting. So hit the like button if you enjoy this. And let me know if there's any other politician that you'd like me to research. I'd be more than happy to make that video for you, especially since, these politicians do have, in my opinion, somewhat of like insider knowledge because of how much really they influence policy. So it's always interesting to see what stocks they're investing in, what trends they think will really take off, and where to be parking their money, to benefit from that. Well, jumping into the list here, we can see that purchase number 1 was in Vistra Corp, ticker symbol VST, which Pelosi purchased an estimated $500,000 to $1 million worth of the stock this year. Now, if you're not familiar with this company, they're technically a utility, but one with heavy ties to artificial intelligence, as they're not only an independent power producer, but a growing portion of their customer base also includes large AI-driven data centers that are only getting hungrier for electricity as AI models grow more powerful over time. Well, one of the most attractive aspects of Vistra is that they are also one of the few power companies out there that already has operating nuclear capacity, which is very likely going to be the energy source of the future, given that these massive data centers will need reliable, low emission 24/7 power. And so most experts feel that, at least at the moment, nuclear is really the only viable option for that going forward. Again, at least at the moment, which Pelosi would, of course, be well aware of, given all the legislative focus on advancing artificial intelligence while still reducing emissions. But unfortunately, for anyone not already in the stock, all that hype has really shot the stock price to record highs, climbing about 30% this year alone and almost 900% in the past 5 years. And although they pay a nice dividend with some excellent growth metrics on it, that recent run-up in stock price has actually left the yield very low at only around 0.5%, with also a premium valuation that trades around 80% more expensive than the sector on a forward PE basis. Although I will say that analysts do expect some substantial future growth from them, that their PEG ratio, price to earnings to growth, is actually 42% cheaper, which is pretty attractive. Personally, I like more Duke, Oklo, and Next Era Energy. That's kind of like my trio of energy stocks that I own myself and that I'm bullish for long term. But I can totally understand why others are betting on Vistra too. So I'm going to rank them around the middle for now at number 3 until we see what else is on this list. Well, coming in at stock number 2, purchase number 2, is another stock here that I don't own myself, and that is a more pure play AI stock known as Tempest, ticker symbol TEM, which Pelosi purchased up to $100,000 of this year. As for their business, though, Tempest is a company that develops AI solutions for healthcare applications. So, for example, one of their newest innovations that investors are really excited about right now is their Fuses program that provides even greater individualized care for patients by integrating AI-driven clinical data with genomic testing and real-world evidence that they've gathered and analyzed from millions of different cases. In fact, Tempest is so powerful when it comes to healthcare data that they actually helped fuel what is literally the world's most powerful biotech supercomputer, which was built by Recursion Pharmaceuticals and NVIDIA, where they supplied over 50 petabytes of biological, chemical, and other health-related data. It's very impressive. Overall, though, Tempest is basically, I would say, trying to become the kind of ultimate AI assistant for doctors, helping them make faster and smarter treatment decisions by connecting the dots across a patient's full medical profile. Something that, of course, could be worth a lot of money in the future, especially as AI in healthcare continues to explode and grows larger in demand. The result of which, though, has been soaring financials, especially on the top line, where they typically see revenue growth of anywhere from 20 to even 80% depending on the year. And although they are not yet profitable, analysts do expect a major improvement over the next few years, with EPS even turning positive in 2027. Even then, though, their forward PE ratio will still be sky high at over 100. So, in other words, this is a highly valued growth stock for which you're paying a premium for today for what they can eventually do in the future. There's a lot of potential there, though, and as such, the stock price has been fairly volatile since IPOing, combination of growth, but kind of premium price tag on it. But it is still up over 60% since that IPO. As for me, though, I do own both Recursion and NVIDIA, which I just mentioned a second ago for that powerful supercomputer. And I wouldn't necessarily mind adding Tempest to that group either, but it's still just a little too speculative for me at a time when I already own too many other risky type of stocks. So I'm actually going to rank them under Vistra here at number 4 because of it, even though I kind of feel like they could be tied depending on what exactly you're looking for in those particular stocks. Well, it's funny that we should mention NVIDIA, though, because the next stock is, in fact, just that. What is arguably the hottest AI stock in the entire market right now, that is NVIDIA, ticker symbol NVDA, which Pelosi purchased up to $500,000 of this year. And honestly, there's not too much that I really need to say here about this one, since it's a stock that I already cover very heavily on my channel, but I'll just quickly hit on a couple major pros and one potential con. Starting with the pros, I mean, some analysts believe that NVIDIA will generate more AI-related revenue than literally any other company in the entire world, thanks to the fact that their GPUs are by far the most powerful and most widely used for AI, with over 90% data center market share, something that bodes extremely well for the trillions of dollars of expected AI spending coming over the next few years, with Meta alone pledging to spend hundreds of billions of dollars just by themselves. Collectively, though, this will easily translate to millions of NVIDIA GPUs being ordered every single year to power the massive new data centers that are being built across the globe, which is exactly why just last quarter, NVIDIA's data center revenue soared by over 70% year over year, despite them already being the clear dominant market leader. As for the only con, though, that's going to be the sky-high stock price that has already soared by more than 1,500% in just the past 5 years, leaving it with what is now literally the largest market cap in the entire world at over $4 trillion. In fact, NVIDIA is the first company ever to hit that milestone, with only 2 other companies even sitting above $3 trillion and another 2 above $2 trillion. Still, I think many would argue that in the case of NVIDIA, you're basically getting what you pay for, and that is incredible growth with tons of future potential still there across multiple red-hot AI markets. Think AI models and algorithms, cloud computing, autonomous driving and robotaxis, the metaverse, gaming, smart cities, healthcare, business. I mean, the list just goes on and on. Virtually all aspects of the world economy, I believe, is going to be touched by AI in some way in the future. And NVIDIA is just one of the best ways to invest in the companies that will be powering that future. And you can just kind of do that through NVIDIA. In fact, analysts expect so much growth from them that their price to earnings to growth ratio is actually still cheaper than the sector by almost 30%, if you can believe it. Again, this is a company that broke north of $4 trillion market cap. How is their PEG still that low? It's because of all the growth that is expected. So while I get that it is an expensive stock overall, there just aren't too many other stocks I would say that I would rather have in my portfolio long-term than NVIDIA. And of course, it's already performed just so well already. But for those reasons, I'm going to have to give them the number 1 spot here today, because if there's really one thing that's been made clear by the 3 stocks that we've covered so far, it's that Pelosi is betting very big on artificial intelligence, and she wants that exposure to the leaders that are going to be driving it. And so in that category, NVIDIA is about as strong of a pick as it gets there. All right, guys, that's 3 down, but we still have another 3 more to go. So I'll try to speed this up a little here. And coming in at purchase number 4, we actually have a major contender for that number 1 spot, because it's another one of my absolute favorite stocks in the entire market, and that is the mighty Amazon, ticker symbol AMZN, which Pelosi also spent up to $500,000 on this year. But look, as much as I love Nvidia, I'm just going to come right out and say this, guys. Amazon is going to take their number one spot. And it's not that it's not close or can't be argued. I mean, you could definitely, I think, argue for either one of these taking that number one spot. But I just think that when you look at how incredibly dominant Amazon is, with by far the most cloud and e-commerce market share, plus all the other markets that they've been quietly moving into, which would take up an entire video just to kind of go through them all. But it's honestly pretty wild how big and large and dominant Amazon has become. And the craziest part is that this is a company that has spent practically zero energy on being profitable, instead going all in on expansion and dominating every single industry that they enter, which is how they've already grown to over $500 billion in annual revenue, that they're still somehow managing to continue growing at a double-digit rate. And yet only less than 60 billion of that even made it down to the bottom line. Now, I say only kind of sarcastically because, yeah, 60 billion in profit is still more than almost any other company in the world. But when you stack that up against their sales, there's still gigantic room for margin expansion there, which is why their profits soared by nearly 100% last year. My point being that for as large and powerful as Amazon already is, there's still huge opportunities for their future. And overall, it's just the type of ultra safe kind of stock that honestly every investor should probably have some exposure to in their portfolio. I mean, when you consider just how incredibly convenient it is to simply grab your phone and order anything that you might need, only to have it show up at your doorstep, sometimes within the same day. Like, seriously, how do you even compete with that? I mean, they're just so strong. And as crazy as it sounds, I actually wouldn't be all that surprised if they end up somewhat running the world one day. And yet, despite the stock trading near an all-time high, their market cap is only around half what Nvidia's is. So I'm actually going to give them the top spot here at number one because I just think they deserve it. All right, guys, just two more to go here. But unfortunately for Amazon, at purchase number 5, we have yet another contender for that top spot. In fact, this is the one stock that I've been referring to all year long as probably my overall favorite stock in the entire market. And that is, of course, Google, ticker symbol GOOGL, which Pelosi also bought up to $500,000 of. And look, for what has obviously been the entire theme of all of Pelosi's purchases this year, in exclusively buying the top names in artificial intelligence, Google arguably makes just as much sense as Amazon and Nvidia too. See, with Amazon, you have the biggest facilitator of AI as the number one market share leader of cloud computing in the entire world. And with Nvidia, you have the biggest in like powering AI as the number one leader in AI chips. Well, what's the one piece that you're really missing there? You have the infrastructure and you have the chips to power it. All you really need now is massive amounts of data to fuel it all. Well, no one, in my opinion, has more real-world, real-time, consumer-level data than Google. They're number one in search and internet browsers, so they know what everyone is doing and looking up online. Number one in email, so they know all your communication patterns and what everyone's discussing. Number one in video streaming with YouTube, so they know what people watch and what their hobbies are and everything else. Number one in digital advertising, so they know how to market to everyone. Number one in maps and navigation, so they know where everyone goes and what they do in the real world too. And let's not forget that they're also number one in smartphones through Android, which people pretty much live their entire lives through at this point. So you add all of this up, and what you're left with here is an unmatched reservoir, really, of data to train and optimize AI across both consumer and business use cases. And oh, by the way, Google also competes directly with both Amazon and Nvidia since they're number 3 in cloud and have even developed their own powerful quantum computing chip too. Not to mention their work in healthcare AI, robotaxis via Waymo, generative AI with Gemini. I mean, the list just goes on. And yet, despite already generating over $350 billion in revenue and more than $100 billion of pure net income profit, Google is still somehow managing to grow at huge rates of more than 13% and a whopping 35% respectively last year. That's insane growth for a company this size. And even though the stock continues to be one of the most reliable performers long term, the valuation is still somehow cheaper than the sector. So even now, I still think it's a great pickup today. It will be very hard to rank them against Amazon though, because I feel you could really argue for either one deserving that top spot at this point. But if I'm splitting hairs, I'll just use that PEG ratio as a tiebreaker since Google trades at 1.3 versus Amazon above 2. So I'm giving Google the slight edge here on our ranking, and I'll adjust everything else to fit it in. Excuse me. All right, guys, that's going to leave us now, though, with our sixth and final purchase here. And that's going to be yet another AI related stock. Pretty strong one, too, in Broadcom, ticker symbol AVGO, which Pelosi purchased the most of at about, or I should say, up to $5 million. Now, while Broadcom may not get the same level of like ultra hype that, you know, some of these other names get when it comes to AI, like NVIDIA, Google, Amazon, and so on, you should make no mistake that Broadcom also still plays a very critical role in the future expansion of AI, especially when it comes to the use of their chips for powering cloud infrastructure, networking, and AI accelerators across the board, which, by the way, are highly customized to meet the specific needs of any organization. In fact, for as dominant as NVIDIA is, big tech giants like not just Google and Amazon, but even Meta, Microsoft, and more have all hired Broadcom to make custom silicon that helps them also speed up their own AI workloads behind the scenes. And on top of all of that, one of their biggest catalysts that even convinced myself to buy into the stock was their massive $69 billion acquisition of VMware, which at that time, that was first announced, a lot of analysts on Wall Street actually kind of frowned upon it. There were times where the stock even dipped a bit because of the acquisition. A lot of people felt that they were worried about how they would integrate VMware into their business. They were worried about the debt, making such a giant acquisition like that. But I always felt, and this is something that I discussed with you guys in many videos around that time when I mentioned that I was buying Broadcom stock heavily at that time. One of the things that I just kind of always felt like they were missing the bigger picture, which is that VMware was absolutely necessary for expanding Broadcom's business even deeper into enterprise software, data center virtualization, cloud infrastructure, and even cyber security, all areas that are absolutely critical for the future of AI, to which Broadcom is now a leader among all of them. And it's in large part, again, thanks to that VMware acquisition. It's also helped them diversify. They've gotten a lot more into software and services, and they're just considered a powerhouse now in AI in general, not just in custom chips anymore, but in so many different things. Anyway, the result has been exploding demand for everything they do, with very strong financials to go right along with it, where both sales and profits have been growing by over 20% a year to new record highs. And unfortunately, for anyone not yet in the stock, though, Wall Street has caught on to this potential. It's driven up the stock price by over 800% just in the past 5 years alone. And although the PEG ratio is still somehow about the same as the sector, I just don't see quite as much potential as I do with like Google, Amazon, and NVIDIA. So I will be ranking them just under those at number 4. And I'll adjust everything here accordingly. Even though I do still really like Broadcom myself. And again, I plan to hold it long term, but I own all 4 of those leaders on the board. But yeah, there you have it, guys. Overall, some very interesting stocks here. When I first looked up the list, I wasn't expecting literally every stock to be an AI play, but it's very obvious here that Pelosi does want heavy exposure to that market, which again, it does make perfect sense given how much she knows about legislation surrounding that whole area, right? Anyway, I would love to know though what you guys think about all of these, and I would love to know too if you would make any changes to my ranking. And do you own any of these stocks yourselves? I would bet good money that most of you own multiple of these stocks, but let me know down below what your thoughts are on any of these. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks again for stopping by, my friends. And I hope you're all doing well. And I will catch you in the next one. All right, take care, everybody. Bye-bye.